kick us off and introduce yourself, and then we can kind of get into this.
Absolutely. Josh DeYoung, Vice President of Sales, Velocity Automotive. I have here with me Patrick Abad, General Manager of Beaver Toyota of Cumming. So we're super delighted to get some of Patrick's time to do this. He's super busy, so we appreciate him jumping on with us.
We all are, right?
So, you know, what a couple of things that, you know, Patrick and I have kicked around for, you know, I would say even pre-COVID and COVID and, you know, now post-COVID is kind of the first thing that we're going to start here. And Patrick, what are you seeing trends wise in 2023? Like, there's so much dynamic in pricing. There's so much dynamic in inventory, right? Is there enough new car inventory? Are you acquiring cars? Are you acquiring cars at the right price? What trends are you seeing as far as like pre-owned sales that dealers really need to focus on? Because you got dealers that are still afraid to buy a car because they're too afraid to get stuck with it, you know? And what does that look like now versus what it looked like 2 years ago?
Well, I would say this, when you're talking about 2023, if you are not, number one, if you're not in the acquisition game, you're already behind. I think acquiring inventory is always, it showed us in COVID how important that role is in your dealership. The used cars is, and I see it, we're shifting towards it. Used cars has become the lifeblood of a dealership. It always was, it always has been, it always was. But a lot of people didn't know it, didn't recognize it, and didn't do anything about it. I think what you're seeing now, good dealers have transitioned their business to understand that used cars feeds every department, and you're seeing that. Well, how do you do that, right? It starts with the acquisition side. I think what we're seeing, and I think it's a really good thing, is dealers, good dealers are becoming better at acquiring cars. And I think that's a big piece of what you'll see in 2023. We talked about it. We are now a used car dealership who happens to sell some new cars, right? Where we used to be new car dealerships. But we know that as long as we're good in the used car game, that we are going to never go broke, never go out of business.
So obviously, you know, we try to put a finger on what pricing of used cars looks like. And I feel like we felt like we had it, or we were close with a guess.
Yeah.
And then as soon as you guess, in the equation and the conversation goes away. And so you as a dealer, you don't control the pricing, right? You don't control interest rates. So, you know, what are you seeing that dealers should really focus on? Because there's two things that they really can't, you know, at the end of the day, they can't change. You got to be able to manage it. So what do you think dealers, you know, should be focused on coming in? And acquisition, I know is something that you hit on pretty heavy.
Well, I think this, right? You have, I think, a strategy of finding ways to sell your car for more is really important. What does that mean? You know, if you have two cars, you have a blue Lexus with a gray interior and you have a white Lexus with a tan interior. To me, that white Lexus with a tan interior, the data shows that car is worth more.
Right.
People aren't using the data properly. Right. And I think if you want to have a healthy used car operation in 23, you got to pay attention. You've got to find ways that your car is worth more. Packaging. We talked about this earlier. Packages in cars is such an important piece. If a car has leather and it has navigation, I'm just using those as random, that car is going to be worth more than the one that doesn't. So when you're looking at your market pricing is such a huge part. What you require the car for, whether the market's up, market's down, it doesn't matter. As long as you sell it for more than you paid for it, you're actually doing good. Right. But you got to find ways to sell yours for more. And that comes in not just the equipment and looking at the actual car itself compared to the market, but what are your unique selling propositions in the store? Why should people do business with you? Why are those things are like becoming important again.
For sure.
For the last 3 years, if you had the car, you won. Right. And that game's over. Game's over, right? And it doesn't mean it, right? We talked about this earlier. There were dealers who didn't want to do the things that it took, right? I think you can be aggressive without being reckless. Through policy, through procedures, through really through accountability. You can be aggressive. You can attack the market without making a mess.
Right.
And the thing is if you're going to go attack it, 2023 is a really good year to attack it because people are uncertain. So while people are pulling back and being conservative, and uncertainty is really a great time to go attack it, to go out there and get the inventory that makes sense for your deal. Have good tight turn policies, have really good reconditioning to get the car out to the front line quick, get it out there, price it correctly, and keep that ball moving. But don't give it away. And I think I really stress this, and I just because you want to get on a quick turn doesn't mean you go and price your car at 95% of the market. That's a really bad strategy, in my opinion. Again, I say things all the time that people don't agree with, and that's fine. But going and trying to be at 95% of the market when that car should draw 98, 99, maybe 102, you're giving away money. And I think it's a mistake, and I think it's bad for our industry.
So you talk about reconditioning, and obviously in the space that I'm in, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, reconditioning softwares didn't even touch a blip of what we see today. And COVID really sped that up, right? I have no new cars on the lot. How do I keep score? How do I measure, right, how long it's taken me from acquisition to retail? And again, we discussed this not too long ago, but how are dealers starting to emphasize vehicle reconditioning? Because I think a lot of it has to do with definition, right? What is your definition of reconditioning? Is it just mechanical? Does it include photos? Like, what is your definition? And then furthermore, what is your average, right? We can't talk about the unicorns that you can get in 3 days. In 3 days, because it's got 15,000 miles and it's super clean, right? So how do you think dealers are starting to like really emphasize vehicle reconditioning? And,
well, let's talk about why it started. Why did people get in the reconditioning game and actually tracking speed and steps and that type of thing? It was COVID who really pushed that on.
Right.
I think for Recon Velocity, I think it came on right at the right time, because COVID happens and now all of a sudden people actually care because they had no new cars.
Right.
How do I get my used cars out to the front line quicker? Well, you think you're at 3 days. And I was that guy. I was like, I'm at 3 days, and yeah, I was 3 days on that car. Right. We talk about the guy who the $7,000 deal. I make $7,000 a car. No, dude, you made $7,000 on one car. Right. I had that one car get out in 3 days, where the majority of my cars, when we actually really started to track reconditioning, we were like 15, 18, 20 on some. And I think once you start to track it and you see what's happening, then you can go in there and fix it. And I think reconditioning becomes a really good part, because when you're a high performing, high volume used car dealer, reconditioning can drive your bottom line, right? More importantly, I do believe this, if you do it right and you've got it done efficiently and you can sell the car quicker, then you're making more money.
Right.
The store's making more money, but you're providing a better product for your consumer. Right. And that's part of that.
It's about.
It's a retention strategy. Actually, selling good used cars is a retention strategy.
Sure.
You have two options. You can have a good reputation or a bad reputation in used cars. And I think reconditioning is a big piece of that.
So to kind of pivot in that same conversation, how are dealers trying to measure reconditioning now, right? I mean, it's usually a spreadsheet, or it's a guess, or it's all anecdotal. And, I'm pretty passionate about this, and this. I believe that people are not using a reconditioning platform because either they don't want to admit there's an issue, or really what I think deep down they're thinking about is, hey, listen, man, I'm getting ready to sign up for another piece of software, and I got to get my people to use it.
It's the hardest part.
So how do you make the right decision to say, hey, listen, I want to choose this company, and here's why I want to choose the company to do, to track my reconditioning? Do you think it's not only just feature set, right? It's are they realistic in the game of used cars? Do they understand the plan and the process of execution?
So I agree with you, and I'll add a little bit to that. I think people don't want to track reconditioning. Number one, they don't know how. Number two, they don't want to know the truth. Right. Or number three, they're scared to death, because the hardest thing to do whenever you're putting in a new product is get people who are used to doing something a certain way bought in, right? Whether it's a Google sheet that they use, an Excel, or a piece of paper.
Right.
I think it's really hard for people. Now, here's the thing. Weak leadership should be scared of those things. If you're a weak leader, you're not going to be able to go and implement a new product, something to where you got to track steps, and there's going to be accountability because you do, right? So think about what you were saying. I'm going to roll out this software. I got to do new steps, and then you're going to tell me if I'm good or bad, right?
Right.
It actually starts with people. When you have people who want to get better, who see the end product, right? Having a good reconditioning process, like we just talked about, is good for the consumer. It's good for the dealership, and it actually is good for the employee. It can make you a better employee. It's really great for the consumer, right? Because you're getting cars that are reconditioned properly, they're getting out to the front line quicker, and that's why it's good for the employee as well. So when it's good for all three, when you have people who are bought into that, they will change. And I think good leadership, when you're rolling out any product, any process, can get people bought into that. I think it changes. What I love about what you guys did, I'm not plugging you, maybe I am. But what I love about what you guys did is you knew the issues we were going to have before we actually had them. We're going to struggle with a technician who gets them, right? And you have an ability to overcome that, right? And I think it's them by seeing the value, the quicker cars are turning, the actual more they're getting paid, right?
Right.
So, and when we started with you guys, we had 3 used car techs, then we went to 4 used car techs. Now we have 8 used car techs, dedicated base for our used car process. And I think leadership with a great partner can roll out any new process if it's good for the consumer, good for the employee, and actually good for the bottom line.
Yeah, I mean, it's powerful when you talk about software, right? Because and that's what we strive to push, and that is, hey, listen, we've got the plan and process execution because we know you're going to run into those things, and when you know that you're given a new software and you're making change and you're causing evolution in a store, and you're going to have pushback, and you're going to have some guys and girls that don't like it. If you voice it and you verbalize it, I think a lot of times there's a lot of respect, not just from a level of position like you are, dealer, principal, GM, but even a technician or a detailer or an outside photo vendor, being able to address those concerns and verbalize it before they want to verbalize it. And it's a mutual level of respect. So
I think leading change right now in today's market is really important, because who we have been for the last 2 years is certainly different than who we're going to be the next 2. Right. Whether good, bad, whatever it is, it's going to be different. So I think really right now in leadership positions, they got to see how are we going to lead change, and talking, that is a big part of it, right? Rolling out new software technologies that people always say, here comes another new technology we're writing a check for that nobody's going to use in 6 months. And it's like, gosh, but if you saw the value in it and now you can't execute it, you're missing that gap is leadership. It really is.
Right. Well, I mean, we talked about this, right? You look at every facet of your business right now. Before, Recon was a part of your business, you had a piece of software in every facet of your dealership, whether it be a service lane write-up tool to track write-ups, right? A menu presentation, whether it be an MPI tool to track additional services, whether it be a CRM to track follow-up and ups logged and internet leads, right? You had everything that you have in your dealership, you had a piece of software to be able to keep score. And you can't fix what you can't measure, and you can't measure what you can't see, right? We've been talking about that forever. But there was that piece in your store called reconditioning that you didn't have a piece of software.
And it's so profitable when you do it right.
Yeah.
Right. It's profitable because it drives instant money to the bottom line while driving a better guest experience, which should drive more gross profit.
Right.
Pretty simple.
So obviously, as a company, Velocity Automotive, we started Recon Velocity, and then we pivoted into Velocity Automotive because we came out with some more products. And we believe with consumer confidence and the challenges that consumers are having again. I had to bring up COVID, but you couldn't go to a lot of showrooms when COVID hit, right? The doors were locked. Nobody would want to get out of their house, and they were doing all the research they could online, right? They were trying to find out as much about that car and that dealership in one spot to be able to build value and where they were going to buy their next car. And, we pivoted into that evidence manual type piece. So what do you think can be done to help build that consumer confidence, right? We talked about window stickers, we talked about reconditioning receipts, and being able to serve that meal, right? How does that consumer want to eat? And just because they're getting a meal, right? What
doesn't mean that's what they want.
Exactly.
Right?
So what do you think about that?
When you're looking at the guests themselves, I believe, again, not everything I believe is right and set in stone. It's just some of the things I believe. I believe that every consumer is different. Every customer should be served different. And I use the restaurant analogy. If me and my wife are going to make reservations for dinner tonight, and we're going to have the best burger in town, we're going to the restaurant, I'm all excited. I set it up. I'm going to get my burger, and I walk into the restaurant. I order my burger, and they bring me out a chicken sandwich. It don't matter how good the chicken sandwich is. I wanted the burger. Right. And I just, it loses a little bit of that experience. Maybe they'll fix it, and that's right. That's a whole nother webinar. But I wanted the burger, and you served me a chicken sandwich, right? So here's the thing in this business, and this is what I truly believe. Every consumer is different.
Right.
You have to have a way to serve them all, the way they want to eat it and what they want to eat. Whether it's the consumer that wants to know the reconditioning of a car, and you can post it in the Velocity Engage packet where a consumer can say, hey, you put new tires on the car, you put new brakes on it. Those are the things that are important to me, and you did that, great.
Right.
Or it could be the customer that's a straight price, or it could be the customer who trade value. It could be the customer of, I want to make it easy, and I'm going to pay your price. I don't really care about the reconditioning. I like everything about the car, but I don't want to step foot in the dealership. Can you serve me? Yes, I can serve you. I can serve the customer who wants to do half their deal online and do the rest at the dealership. I can serve that customer as well. I think it's really important to have a process, and this is very controversial, have a process for everybody.
Right.
I got a tow truck that I can deliver a car to customers. I can drive them to them. I can have the customers. I can go pick them up. I can serve everybody. And I think that's a really important piece. And I think when you look at like the Velocity Engage packet, you're able to pack all different types of information,
Right.
depending on the consumer.
Right.
Let them choose what they want, right?
Absolutely.
I think in automotive, we try so hard, again, controversial, whatever. You try to put everybody down this sales funnel, and it's like, you have to go through step 1, step 2, all the way down to step 10. And I just think that game has changed. I don't believe there's a process as much as there is a checklist now.
Right.
You might walk in and say, before I even start with you, I want to know your trade value. But you might have a customer who just wants to see what you have in inventory. You might have a guy who wants to see the price before he ever goes. You try to force these
Right.
people down, and to me, you're not doing. Everybody talks about great experience, and I always say, define what that means. We're going to make it easy to buy. Cool. The guy down the street's going to make it easy to buy too. We're going to have great prices. Sell the guys down. What is really going to be different?
Right.
I think some of the differentiator in today's business is serving people what they want to eat, not being order takers.
Right.
That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
But let's be honest, the customer today is different than the customer when I grew up in sales.
Right.
Like it was, you can guide them down but now they come in, they're so, and I hate, this sounds so stupid, but they are so armed, right? There's not many customers that they kind of understand what they want. Sometimes sometimes they need a little bit of help,
Right.
but for the majority, I look at consumers that they kind of know what they want. They kind of know what they want to buy.
Right.
When they're engaging with the dealership, it's just seeing if they want to do business with you.
Right.
So
Well, it's kind of like you said, it's like you can both service cheeseburgers and French fries, but I might want to eat my French fries first.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I got served the same food, but I ate it differently, right? Because
That's
it's
right.
all in how I want to eat it. I don't
That's
like
right.
ketchup. You do, right? So
and
it's
that's
all
why
in,
I tell you, a sales process is more of a checklist now. Yes, every customer should get a service walk and should go see the value of doing service in your service department. But that might come step 8 with me and step 2 with you.
right.
Right. So it's more of a checklist. Did these things happen as part of the sale? So did you follow this path?
Right, in order, right? It doesn't have to be
100%.
followed in order, right? So that's a great point. So as the market is so up and down with prices and wholesale price, I mean, we talked
Nah.
about, you put math on it, and you got to go back to the TI 89 days, right? And that's cosign. But what do you think dealerships, as we wrap up, what do you think dealerships are trying to do to separate themselves in the market, right? How do you have a competitive advantage? Because I believe every used car tells its own unique story,
I agree.
right? So how do you tell that story? Whether you're in the showroom, whether you're online, whether you send in a lead, how do you think dealers separate themselves or try to separate themselves in this market?
Well, I think in this market, right, you got to find things that help win the ties. I think lifetime retention strategies is a biggie, things that tie people back to the dealership. But you got to do things that help you win the ties. If me and you, if you own a dealership, I own a dealership, and we have the same car, why would you pick me?
Right.
Why would you pick me? And what can I do that you can't? I think
Right.
that becomes really, really big. Feeding them that type of information through transparency and actually having a car. I said this earlier. I think this is a really big, having cars out there that you have nothing to apologize for. That's a philosophy that I think is more important today than it was 3 years ago.
Right.
Certainly more than it was 10 years ago. Like my cars, I want them to stand. I want everybody in this town to know that Beaver Toyota sells really good used cars. And the only way to do that is to provide really good used cars.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if it's a 10-year-old car or a 5-year-old car. And if there's things on the car that I'm not going to fix, I think transparency is telling the customer what's broken and I'm
Right.
not going to fix, not hoping, right? But for me, I try to drive everybody back to my service department. I think it's a really big part of long-term growth in a dealership. What I don't want is a customer to come in on their first service and me give them a grocery list of things to do.
Right.
Right. I think that's why I think, again, back to reconditioning, I think providing really good cars that are fixed. If it needs it, fix it.
Right.
Right. Whatever your pricing strategy, whether you're at door rate, you're not at door rate, none of that really matters.
Right.
If a car needs it, I believe that you should fix it.
Well, and I'm gonna segue, and even though we're wrapping up on this last point, we didn't really highlight CPOs, and CPO for your dealership is a big structure and mission statement for you, because you don't only CPO Toyotas.
I CPO everything.
Right.
Right.
So
I partner with a company, Paul's company, Trusted Sale. They have a really great product that helps us CPO. Manufacturers have figured the CPO. Most of them have. Most of the manufacturers have done a really good job of rolling out CPO programs that are awesome. And I think right now, especially certified vehicles just have an edge. I believe that.
Right.
So the Toyota Certified, I'm a Toyota store. Toyota Certified is a really good program. I've taken that program and literally duplicated it with Trusted Sale to where every vehicle has an identical warranty. Why did I do that? A couple of reasons. Number one, when my salespeople are out there selling a Toyota certified, and then we're going out and selling a Honda that is certified, Beaver Toyota certified, right?
Right.
It has an identical warranty to what the manufacturer did. They got it all figured out. They did their research. They know what's going to bring value to the consumer, what's bring value to the vehicle. If they got it figured out, I just duplicated it with my Hondas and my Nissans and my all other products, right? So now I'm able to go out there, and if you're buying a 50,000 mile Honda, I'm able to say that car's covered up to 100,000 miles, platinum coverage warranty. You get a 1 year powertrain warranty with the 1 year
Right.
platinum coverage warranty, identical to the one the Toyota gets. I made it simple for our salespeople to sell certifieds, right? So now I can sit there and say, when you buy cars from us, they're protected by warranties, they're inspected to the highest level, and they're reconditioned to the utmost standards. I think that's really important,
Right.
right? And I think CPO is certified. I think certified pre-owned vehicles, they do wonderful things to the bottom line. I think consumers believe in the value with them, as long as dealers are truly doing what the certified program says.
Right.
So.
Right. So that's all we have here. Bart, do you have anybody that chatted or any questions that may have popped
Yeah, I this has been really fun, and I just turned my camera off. Nobody wants to see my mug when I've got you two on the screen, but yeah, this is really good, Patrick. It's always a pleasure, but I want to pick your brain on something. This is more of an observation than a question, but to me, what I heard when you started this conversation around acquisition, I've heard this theme over and over and over again. A parallel example would be someone 15 years ago saying, if you're not on the internet, you're already behind. And you're saying that now about used car acquisition. Like, if you're not doing it, you're behind. It's the new normal. It's the new model of how things need to be. Can you give us a little bit more context or a little bit more insight on what you're doing or how you are acquiring those vehicles that puts you in that position?
Yeah, well, first let's start with the reality is people there's still dealers out there, Bart, who are filling their inventories with cars they're taking in on trade. And that's good. That's the best. That's the ultimate, right? You sold the car, you took a trade in. But 50% of what we sell here, we did 385 used cars last month. 50% of them were purchase units. So if I didn't have an acquisition strategy, I would have sold half the used cars I did. And the acquisition strategy, you can go to the auction all day. I do. We buy cars at the auction. I hate it because of, number one, you don't know what you get, inaccurate CRs, all the things that I'm telling car dealers that they already know. But private party acquisition is really where it's at. And private party acquisition, meaning this town, where Beaver Toyota is in Cumming, Georgia, North Georgia, everybody knows we give you the most for your car if you're going to sell it outright. So even if you're ordering and your Honda Pilot's coming in, I'm a Toyota store, people are bringing us their trades before they're going there and getting our numbers. Why? Because I'd rather give it to a consumer than give it to the auctions, right? And so we started a buying center. We did this just about a year and a half ago. We have a buying center made up of kids. The oldest one in there is 23 years old. I've never sold cars before, and that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted a buying center of people who did not have that emotional attachment to vehicles, and we made it a math equation. We use some technology in there. We're a VinQ store and Lot Pop. We use both of those combined to put a buying plan on what they should buy. When they attack a car, when they attack private party purchases in the way that if a dealer does that, not only do you buy a better car, but you fill the inventory with cars that you want. And that's it. It's literally a buying center that's buying hundreds of cars a month that has no other jobs. And you know, we go back years, Bart, you start talking about we were never supposed to have silos in automotive. And I actually believe an acquisition center should be a silo. They should stand on their own. They have their own metrics. You don't put, I've never had success telling a salesperson, go out there and buy cars from the street. No, because they're trained to sell cars. They're not trained to buy cars. And yes, you might get one guy who buys one or two here or three, but these guys are buying 250 cars a month. So when you look at that, strategy, technology, right? Keep a silo and go fill your inventory with cars that are going to sell in your market better than you would if you went out to the auction.
I love that. I've got a couple questions, kind of keep continuing that acquisition strategy theme. This is from Jason. Some dealers look at MMR as gospel. What role does MMR play in your acquisition strategy when it comes time to purchase vehicles off the street?
I actually, MMR plays a very little role in acquisition strategy, because MMR is exactly what it is, right? It's Manheim market report for that vehicle that in the wholesale world. I don't plan on wholesaling the car. I plan on retailing a car. What really should matter is what can you retail it for at an honest and ethical profit, minus your reconditioning that you have to do for the car. And that's really what you should pay for the car. Here's what I think I can sell it for, where I'll sell it for a good, honest, ethical profit. Here's what I think I need to do to make that car to the highest standards or a certified vehicle. And that's what you should be paying for it. MMR, especially nowadays, because let's be honest, MMR only tells you what sells. But I watched at an auction just today that the sell rate was probably 40%. So what you're not seeing is the cars that didn't sell. Or what you're not seeing in some of the wheels is cars that aren't running through Manheim. So just using MMR as a guide is really dangerous.
Interesting. This is a question that either Josh or Patrick, either one of you can take. Robert was asked, kind of mentioned this thing that's kind of been passed around the great decoupling, separating the two transactions, which is what you're talking about. We'll acquire your car, you don't have to buy from us, or vice versa. He said, I've seen transactions with trades coupled, trade-ins drop from 60% to 30%. Can you guys speak to that? Are you experiencing that? Maybe Josh and your dealers are we seeing a reduction in people that are trading their car in, as opposed to what used to happen? Okay.
And I'll tell you why, because of what I just spoke about earlier. People got a Honda Pilot that's coming in 2 weeks and they're bringing me their trade first. The dealers who are doing private party acquisition, when, let's be honest, CarMax, Carvana really made a dent in that game. People were bringing their cars somewhere else. They're bringing their cars somewhere else before they're bringing them to the dealer. And I think, is that happening every time? No, but it's happening a lot. And I know it because I'm filling my inventory. I'm getting a Land Rover street purchase when they got another Land Rover coming in. Well, it's because you're giving them too much money. Cool. If I sell it and turn it for an honest and ethical, remember, as long as you pay, it's simple. The days, I hope the days where dealers buy a car today for 30 grand and put it out on the lot for 28 tomorrow, that's stupid, right, Bart? Right. If I buy it for 30 today, should I put it out on the lot for 28 tomorrow? No. If you buy it for 30 today, you should sell it for more than what you paid for it, right? Otherwise, you got it totally wrong. Again, you can be aggressive without being reckless.
Bart, and that's what he's talking about. I mean, we highlighted it. We were talking, spitballing yesterday. You still have dealers that are like, I'm not buying used cars because I don't want to get stuck with them. They've been saying that for 3 years.
Yeah.
Right? Like at some point, you've got to make a decision to want to be in business to sell pre-owned vehicles. And if you're playing scared, right, you're going to lose the deal, and you can't sell from an empty cart. So, I've always had the saying, you can't paint your house when it's raining, right? You should have painted your house when it was sunny. And that's because you have to be aggressive, right, without being reckless. And you're going to have to make a decision to want to be in the business. And there's plenty of programs and tools out there for you to be that way, right? So at some point, you're going to have to buy a used car, right? Again, people are like, I'm not buying used cars because I'm going to get stuck. Well, you said that every month for the last 3 years. At some point, you're going to have to start buying used cars.
And
right?
Bart, if for these people that are looking where their trades used to be 60%, now are 30%, I would really, if that was my store, I'd be looking at what trade values we're actually presenting to our customers on our internet leads and that type of thing.
What's your look to book your trade versus the vehicles? How many appraisals are you doing versus how many you're actually taking in?
And then go look at those numbers. And typically you got somebody who's trying to snap a trade, right? Because they went out and purchased cars at the auction and paid way too much for them. So they're trying to offset it on the consumer's trade. So they try to lowball the trade, and they look at the 4 or 5 they brought in, but they never look at the 15 they missed.
Yeah. Here's something that underscores what you're talking about. Wall Street Journal had a CarMax Pick Your Lane article. Basically said, do you want market share or profit? They picked profit. CarMax is confident that it can stop market share losses when the economic conditions stabilize. What do you think of that?
So let me hear that again. They basically said, do you want market share or you want profit? And they want profit. God bless them. Because listen, profit comes from having the right cars, is having the right inventory that you're going to sell, right? To me, this is my opinion, having the right inventory, reconditioning it properly, and putting it out there and telling the world you have it, right? used cars is used car growth comes from having a triangle of 3 legs. One, which is having inventory, marketing, salespeople, and process. And if you have the 3 of those and you want to grow your used car department, you grow them equally. You go get more inventory, you tell the world you have it, and you have the salespeople to sell it. And on the inventory side, I don't believe you have to pick. I believe you can gain market share with gross profit and profitability. I don't think you have to go, if you go out and get the right cars, you're telling the right people you have them, and you have the salespeople who can make them, who can have that process to have them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And he says a good article. You guys should read it. Thanks, Robert. It's in the Wall Street Journal, April 12th. That's pretty cool. Thanks for sharing that with us. Anecdotally, I was talking to a general manager a couple weeks ago, and we were just talking about the state of the market, and I was just joking. I said, I wonder if anybody that we hired since COVID on the sales floor is just ruined, right? Because they don't know how it used to be. And he countered with, I think that there are operators and dealerships that COVID ruined. That they're so used to, or they're operating with this mindset of, we have it, or, you're going to come buy it because it's us, versus what you're talking about, which is, dealership differentiation and really getting back to the basics of selling who you are and what you represent. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think there's going to be real opportunity for dealers that can master that going forward, that they can, sell their dealership like we used to have to do.
Mm-hmm. And they don't have to wait. They should be doing it right now. We should have been doing it a year ago. We should have been doing it 2 years ago. And I know dealers who have, and those are the ones who have really been thriving, right? There's dealers right now who are tanking, but there is also dealers right now who are thriving. I think that's such an important statement. What are the guys that are doing, that are thriving now? What are they doing? They're doing exactly what you said. They're building value back into their dealerships, right? They're putting together retention strategies. I said this the other day. We want to sell 7,500 cars this year, new and used. Okay. Our database now is 50, 60, 70, 80, 100,000, right? So I don't actually need to go out and get a whole bunch of new customers. I just got to take care of the ones that I have. And I think there's a missing piece on that, because so many dealers over the last 2-3 years were able to say, sorry, Mr. Customer, I'm not going to sell you the car because I got 10 other customers willing to pay me more for it. Okay. So I think we got to stop for a second and get back to the retention strategies that we worked really, really hard to build, right? Up to 2019, we worked really hard to build these retention strategies. And then we kind of pushed them aside because we had 10 customers for every car instead of 10 cars for every customer.
Yeah. Well, Josh, I've got one more observation. I just love what you guys were saying, and I took a bunch of notes. You mentioned just the power and how kind of backwards it is if you have this data and you can track this data, or you have the opportunity to get this data, versus just ignoring it. And how foolish that sounds, right? If we have the ability to track our reconditioning process, how quick we get it out, and we can manage our stores on that, it just seems foolish that you'd want to just kind of turn the other way. It's like my dog, when I come home and he's been in the garbage, you won't look at me, right? Like, that doesn't mean the garbage didn't get rooted. That means my dog's not going to look at me. I just find that really fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think dealer principals, GMs, operators, they have a lot of fires in a lot of ways in a store. And I think in their mind, they think reconditioning is not the hottest fire in front of them, because they've never had a way to manage it. And it's either, they don't know how, or they don't want to. And it's hard for me to look at it any other way than that. And so, with me and what we do as a company, education is king. But like Patrick said earlier, I think the reason they don't want to address this, even though they know it's a problem, is because they're afraid of losing people. You know how hard it is to hire a new person? I mean, it's incredible. So I don't want to roll out a new piece of software and then have a technician in my office in the afternoon, right? And for me, the only way you can do that is address the current concerns before the dealer does. And if you do it that way, they respect you, and they know that you're a trusted person in the business. And if you go about it that way, a lot of those that want to turn the blind eye, they don't want to turn the blind eye anymore, because they know it's an issue, and they know that they have a partner that's going to help execute it with them, because we've seen it over and over and over again, right? You just got to have the plan and process execution. And if you address it that way, sometimes the foolishness kind of goes away, but I mean, we're all stubborn in our own mind, right?
That's right. That's right. Well, you two, thank you so much for joining. It's always a pleasure. This has been a really engaging conversation. Anytime you two want to hop on, like, I'm in. Let's go.
That's
Patrick, thanks so much. I know you are just, you've probably got 12 people outside the door right now waiting to get in to see you, right? And Josh, I'm confident the only reason we got you on this is because Josh walked in your office and sat down with the computer, right? You're so busy, but thank you so much, you guys. We really appreciate it. And it was
Always
really
good to see you, Bart. You take care.
We
yeah,
appreciate
you
it.
too. Josh, Patrick, everybody who was on this broadcast, thanks for participating, and we'll talk to you soon.
See you guys.
Thank you.